We have another dynamic speaker I would like to introduce. It's Kurt Graber. He is the president and CEO of Wattre Corporation. He's got all this cool equipment up here. Wattre Corporation was founded in 2002, and it focuses on creating custom solutions for real-world applications. The team consists of customer-focused team with 40-plus years of combined experience designing both mass-produced and innovative custom technology solutions within the audio, acoustics, and cyber technology fields. We've heard a lot about that today, and so you're going to hear a lot more detail that will be very valuable. The secret to Wattre's success is the ability to identify market needs quickly and provide rapid response to custom solutions. In-house research and development, engineering, prototyping, and manufacturing has paved the way for the unique patented technologies the company offers. And Mr. Graber is really an American disruptor in a very, very cool way. So I'd like you to just keep an eye on this company and on this amazing entrepreneur, and please welcome him to the stage.
Good morning. How are you guys today? I got a chance to listen to a little bit of Eric's stuff. That's pretty cool. He is actually, he's coming to the market from a perspective that is almost inverse to mine. I come to the market from a perspective of, I'm an inventor and an architect of technologies, and I take it to Congress. I take it to the government. I take it to markets and capitalist positions around the world. So the intent is to give you a quickie overview look of what you can be involved in. Not too many years ago, I was walking in the same hall, so that's kind of cool. We have to think in terms of how can you make an impressionable change to the world around you. That is key. So if you go to the first slide for me. So today I'm going to talk about a couple different things. I'm only going to cover a few of this, a sample of the technology products that we are bringing to the technology market today. This is nowhere near the end of our company's portfolio. It is extensive. We're going to talk about today some of the products that are called Hyperspike, Pin Shot, Stick Shot, CMC, magnetic motors, Hyperpulse, RF Spike, and C's Cyber. All of these topics, the idea is just to give you an insightful look, just a quickie glimpse of what is going to change those specific markets substantially. And you can have these same kind of influences in your looking forward lifetimes. So go to the first slide for me. So a quickie overview of Hyperspike and some of my stuff that I've been involved with in the development over the last few years is we have a product series of acoustics products that are utilized for various applications. Hyperspike is this device right here, there, right there, right there. This is the world's loudest speaker. Yes, I do hold the world record for being the loudest guy on the planet. I also am one of the quietest guys on the planet. When you learn acoustics, you learn that not only is being loud important, sometimes the ability to create loud sounds is just, the ability to silence them is just as important. Each time you look at these kinds of technology products, you have to be mindful of what they might be used for and how you can counter their use as well. So in this realm, you have a defense product that is typically utilized for communications. So I want to talk to people from a grand long-range way. Hyperspike was developed. I created this product technology to focus sound waves just like this laser focuses light. You see the laser on the wall. There is no light going out of the device to the side. It only goes down the beam. Hyperspike works like that with acoustics. MIT calls it the world's first acoustic laser. So that product was created in order to deliver acoustic sound a very long distance away very powerfully. This is another product that's very novel. This is a product called OptiSpike, and OptiSpike is the world's most powerful searchlight. How can I illuminate somebody at a grand long distance away? I use that product to do this. It's a laser-pumped optical device. So this is the RAD product. This is a product that is created for robotic control of a Hyperspike with cameras and other things to be utilized for the border control wall, for instance. So if you want to put a technology wall in place around an area of interest so that you can monitor what's going on, you would utilize those kinds of products around that perimeter in order to accomplish that. The U.S. government is very much interested in that, as you might imagine. So the product up here is called the MA1 system. There are currently those systems that are utilized for communications within all of our typical forward operating bases, and also to be utilized for communications in our domestic bases here in the United States as well, abroad. So when you look at these kinds of technology products, they're innovative, they are world-changing. And whenever those ideas come to us, we oftentimes have no idea how that tool would be utilized. It's just a matter of us maturing that technology product and turning it into something that is novel, and then the world around us says, you know what I can use that for? I can solve this problem with that technology, and that's amazing. Oftentimes I get into meetings or I'm called and they're asking, how would you solve this problem? We get calls from the US government all the time. They say, here's my problem. How would your team address that? And they give me a short time to think about it, and my team brings about all of the possibilities that we can think of to resolve that challenge at that one moment. So if you go to the next slide for me. So I've got 51 patents at the moment. There's 18 or 19 that are pending as well. The Guinness Book of World Records is a mainstay in our statement path because it provides us the ability to assure these entities that if we need to accomplish something amazing with acoustics, I have the backing, I have the wherewithal to accomplish that. We set that world record in 2007. Nobody's even gotten close to it so far. It was almost a magnitude of order increase over the previous level. So it wasn't a small increase, it was a ginormous increase. And it's a neat scenario to be able to speak to people and say, these are the kind of ideas that you can also come up with. I would hope for you in your lifetime that you come up with some kind of an idea or concept that allows you to exceed the potential and capability of the current product technologies that are abroad. In 2014, my team and I were awarded the Northrop Grumman Research and Development and Innovation of the Year. That came because of a DARPA program that we were on with them. It was a very short program, 120 days total time period. And I was given almost no time to resolve a challenge that has been persistent for 25 years. And my team and I beat out Boeing and a bunch of other really, really large companies because we were innovative and we were quick to react to resolve. And that's exactly what it took to accomplish that resolve at that moment. And as a result of that, Northrop Grumman awarded us that award in 2014. And since then, I'm on a first-name basis with the director of DARPA. He's very intrigued with our stuff. So if you go to the next slide for me. Some of these products are really, really straightforward. Others are really, really interesting and novel. This sitting in front of you, this is an HS-10. This is the smallest acoustic device that I build. I'm going to play it for you just a second so you can hear this. Just a normal device, but it also has some really unusual properties. It can play extremely loud for something that is very, very small. So this device, I can communicate just with a standard microphone as you hear it, as you see this. Check test, check test.
Check test, check test.
So you would think that's loud. That's not quite wide open. So this challenge of this product is, can I make something that's really compact and small and yet make an impressionable, amazing change to an acoustics requirement? This is the smallest device that we make, yet this device in the hands of a first responder can talk to people almost a mile and a half away. If you're lost in the woods, what would you want to have? Would you want to have a little megaphone, or would you want to have this? The difference is this gave us the ability to resolve something that the market needed and do it at a very low cost. My partner on this product is a small company called Ultra Electronics, which used to be Magnavox Defense here in Fort Wayne. So when we deliver these products around the world, we're delivering resolve and solutions, not just good products that can capture a little bit of market, but products that are disruptive to the market. They change the market, and that's what you should drive towards as well. All right, go to the video for me, if you will. This is the big brother to that product. So that is the HS-14. So that's the next step up from this one, and it's utilized in helicopters and applications for security fields and around the world.
Hybrid technology. We will now be available for any questions you might have. Ultra Electronics, bringing innovation to your experience. You are in a U.S. Army restricted zone. The use of deadly force is authorized in this area. Depart the area immediately or we will fire upon you.
You all know how loud a helicopter is, right? Can you hear that audio over the helicopter?
You are in a U.S. Army restricted zone. The use of deadly force is authorized in this area. Depart the area immediately or we will fire upon you.
So what you just witnessed is you witnessed a very small compact system that has no more power than the sound system in most of your cars probably, and yet it's focusing that sound to do a job that is exceedingly valuable to the government or to other applications. Should you want to communicate to somebody in a speeding car, that car was going almost 90 miles an hour and had the windows up, and we could record the audio that was coming out of the helicopter into that car. That is a novel solution, and that's a solution that can only be produced with very high efficiency, high energy acoustics. All right, let's go to the next slide if you don't mind. So, yes, I'm NASA's sound guy. I'm the guy that did all of the acoustics design work for the launch pad. This is launch pad 39B. Right here's 39B, and there is the VAB. That VAB is where they assemble all of the rockets. I am the guy that designs the acoustic systems for the NASA facilities. So I actually develop exactly how we're going to utilize sound products to communicate, to make warning for lightning calls and things of that nature out on the site. This is the array that is utilized. If you look at it, this is the big brother to this device, and it's an array of them. And that array sits way back here. It's 4/10 of a mile away, and sprays sound or direct sound to exactly on that platform, and that platform is what will secure the rocket. That's where the rocket is actually lifting off from. And whenever they are assembling this rocket, there is as many as 10,000 people on this facility, and the scale of that facility, it's not one football field, it's 370 of them. So I was given the challenge by NASA. They said you can have 2 positions to have your communications located, this array, and you have to cover, with that sound system, you have to cover an area that's more than 300 football fields. That is a challenge. That is a challenge that went into a tender and into a competition. We actually were awarded by a long shot over our competitor. Our competitor said they needed 53 positions around the facility to cover it. I did it with 2. Now, the challenge with this solution is you have to deliver a good idea and a path to get that good idea to be relevant. If you go ahead and play the video for me.
All right, folks, up on top of 39B, so we got our line arrays down here. We're going to do a audio test shortly. So the audio is going to come from 2 of my sides, actually. Just give you a panorama.
That's SpaceX right there. It's right on the same
So we're on top of the launch pad. The nearest speaker to me is a little over 4/10 of a mile, 0.42 miles away.
Located right there.
Got a lot right there. That base just came from almost a half a mile away. Isn't that neat? Hyperspike rocks.
So this video has gotten a lot of traction, as you might imagine. A lot of my compadres are pretty proud of it because what it displays what a good idea turned into and the resolve that it provided. The resolve that it provided provided NASA with a perfect solution set that was literally about 18% of my competitor's bid, total. So I didn't just save money, but I solved the problem, and I did it with something that was novel, made right here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. That's kind of cool. All right, so next slide, please. This one is one of the newer things that I'm working on. So everybody is fearful of how you might resolve somebody in an assailant scenario. If that individual comes to you and says, says, I want to take your purse, or they just try to grab your purse, or they're chasing you around at night or something of that nature, what would you use? Would you yell really loud? Would you blow a whistle? Which I'm going to show you something cool about that a little bit later. The answer is you have to have a self-defense mechanism, a solution set. That solution set is a challenge. Well, the challenge that we looked at is everybody's aware of pepper spray and what pepper spray does and how it works. That's kind of cool, but it isn't very effective beyond about 8 or 9 feet. And it's also a liquid, which means that unless you inhale it, it doesn't really do a lot of good. It burns your eyes, but it isn't very effective. So I'm working with Tippmann Industries, which Tippmann Pneumatics, if anybody guys paintball, you know what Tippmann Pneumatics is. They're the big mainstay business here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, that is the basis of how to use a pneumatic capability to project a ball that does marking on. Well, we also shoot what's called pava material. Pava material is, if you like Mexican food, which I do, I love habanero, they grind up habanero kind of materials and turn it into a powder, and that powder is airborne, and this is what shoots it. It looks just like a little stick, but literally this has a safety device, and you fire it, and you can fire this at somebody and disperse that pava material not to 8 or 10 feet, but up to 60 feet away. So this product it's one of our newest things. If you'll roll the video, you get to see me take a shot here just for fun.
Take the one for the team. I'll show you how this thing works. John's going to do the honor shooting somewhere in the midsection. You'll see the power. All right. There you go. I'm covered in powder. I hope he's snoozing and coughing and blowing my guts out if I was follow. See ya.
Here's a slow-mo. Notice you get a plume, but you also get the projectile that goes out about 60 feet. So the plume, you think of that as the near field effect, and that powder, if it's carrying this PAVA and OC material, it is an irritant. It's a very temporal irritant. It only lasts about 25 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes generally, but it literally has been proven to resolve, and it modifies people's behavior. If you have somebody that is an assailant against you and they have this cloud hit them, they're not going to be an assailant any longer, which is good. It gives you a chance to run away or do whatever you choose to do to get out of there. This is cool. And they said, well, that's cool, but not everybody's going to want to handle that. It's pretty big. I said, well, how about I make a pen? Do the same thing. So this is the ink pen version of it. By the way, it has a really nice cross cartridge in it so that you can write with it with extraordinary effect. This is the same power as that. Innovation sometimes is taking a good idea and miniaturizing it. And the end result is this is a product you're going to see hit the market in January. It's going to be all over the world. These products actually have the chance of being not just an application for a personal defense thing, but also for, let's say you're a jogger and you live in an area that has wild animals. Bear. We've actually had people shoot bears with this stuff because it's very effective at warding a bear away. So if you have a scenario where you're looking for a solution set that can resolve a self-defense kind of mechanism, this is just a good idea, but one that's getting turned into a product as well. If you go to the next slide for me. So this next one's a little more complicated. Long before we were alive, a gentleman by the name of Nikola Tesla came up with the concept for AC that we use today. He used the mindset of creating an oscillatory or AC current, which was inverse to the DC current that was the standard of the time. Well, I've studied Tesla. He's my favorite study. I really love going back through his old patents and looking at where he ran into challenges because he was no longer able to create materials to serve the needs of his interests and his ideas. So what I'm doing now is I study Tesla's ideas and I apply today's modern technology to it. The result of that is CMC. This is a focused magnetics field electric motor. We've already built prototypes of the linear motor. It's extraordinary. If I would go to Nikola Tesla and ask him, how could I help you resolve challenges that you had in the 1890s and in the 1910s, for instance, he would say, can you show me a way to create higher magnetic flux? Because at the time, magnetic flux was a challenge for everybody then. We had a very limited current, We also had very poor magnetic materials. Today we have neodymium ion boron, samarium cobalt, lots of other kinds of materials that can be utilized to create terrifically high magnetic force. Whenever you look at the geometry of the CMC, CMC has a magnetic flux focus. So we're using the materials and the geometry to take the energy of the flux of the magnet and to focus it into a field area that is relative to the effort or work to be done. So what this product does is this exceeds what's called the saturation limit of steel. Steel can have only a certain amount of magnetic flux into it before it leaks, just like a sponge does. If you take a sponge and you fill it up with water, eventually the sponge gets so full that it leaks out every pore, and that's exactly how iron works with magnetics, energy. With the geometry of CMC, we're no longer limited to 2 Tesla, which is actually a unit of magnetism, as a limitation of its magnetic flux. I can actually go above 5. I've got a little handheld device that I usually carry around. I forgot it today, but it's a little handheld device that actually has more magnetic flux than the MRI machine that Parkview uses, and it's something that you can hold in your hand, only because of the geometry and the shape and the function of this. So what will CMC affect in the future? Electric motors. That's what's going to change. Elon Musk, if you would go to him and say, I have a new battery technology, he would say, oh, please, please, can I have it? Can I turn that into a product for my cars? We may get to a better battery chemistry at some point in time. At this moment, we don't have anything better than the lithium cells that are out there. However, if you went to the Tesla car company and you said, I can improve your battery capacity by 10 or 12%, what would you do with that? He would say, I would take it immediately, because it would extend the range of his potential car. Well, instead of changing the battery chemistry, let's just take his 80% efficient motor and turn it into 97% efficient. It's the same result. You'll get, with the same batteries that he has today, with this kind of motor, you could get an extended range, probably in the 400 miles realm. So, I've got a very short video. This is just going to show this simulation in black and white so you can see the flux lines and how they work in the rotation. Notice the very high flux gain right there. That's the snap, and that is exactly when that motor is creating something extraordinary. It's roughly 6 times the power or 6 times the torque of a conventional shielded pole type of motor design. What makes this novel is not that it's an electric motor. What makes it novel is that I harnessed all of the magnetic flux and didn't allow it to leak out the top or out the sides or anything else. Most of the energy is all being utilized in this air gap, which is exactly where the work is to be accomplished. That's important for a motor design. These are kinds of ideas that came out of somebody from Fort Wayne, Indiana, from your town. This is where I was born and where I grew up. These ideas are no better than your ideas. The key is you just have to get in with a group of people that allows you to help mature your ideas and turn them into something extraordinary. If you go to the next slide for me. All right, so everybody always asks, what's the nastiest thing you've ever invented? We call it the hyperpulse. So this is you've probably heard of a stun grenade before. The police use them. And what they use them for is to modify your intent, if you're a bad guy, or distract you. Well, this is an automated stun grenade of sorts. It also creates something that's called a radio vortex. You ever seen somebody blow a smoke ring out of their mouth before? Well, this creates a shock ring of radio vortex it's made of plasma. And it projects out of the front of the barrel assembly. You'll see it in the video. And you can actually hit somebody from a range, and it's just a puff of hot air, actually. But it's a very effective puff. Go ahead and run the video for me. That ring you see, that's the ring. That's the plasma. So it creates an optical disruption, just like you would expect. It creates an acoustic concussion that's 180 decibels, which is very, very loud. And it also creates that plasma ring that goes forward at about 450 feet per second. shot out a pane of glass a window just for fun. So my team and I have a lot of fun, as you might imagine. What we do when we create these ideas and concepts, this particular one was born out of the U.S. Navy came to us and they said, how would you keep people from boarding a ship? The problem that occurred was every time they would go into foreign port, a lot of people would try to charge onto the ship as soon as they would drop the plank. And they currently they park a bunch of really strong guys at the top with guns, and they ward off the people. We are also using acoustics to give communication and commands, and they were interested in possibly utilizing the hyperpulse as a less lethal method of modifying somebody's behavior, if you will. So if you happen to charge onto a ship in foreign port, one of Uncle Sam's big boats, you might be greeted with something like that at the top. All right, so next slide, please. So RF Spike is something really cool. This is a challenge that the U.S. government actually, it was requested that I look into this about, I guess on the order of about 2.5 years ago. RF Spike is a product that is capable of disabling drones as they fly. Drones are a challenge in and of themselves. They can carry cameras, which are bad, but they can also carry birthday presents. We call them birthday presents because we want to be nice about it, but truly what they are doing is the bad guys are buying up drones, commercial drones, and they're hanging explosives underneath of them, and they're flying them into buildings and flying them into places of interest. It is truly a very low-cost cruise missile. So the government has to have a way of taking these drones out. I'm going to show you a video next. This video is, please know, this is just a simulation. It's not real, but this is a real-life potential effort, and it's going to ring home to you really quick. Go ahead and roll it for me. So this is the bad guys. They're launching a whole bunch of drones out of their van. These drones are what's called a swarm, a drone swarm. So this swarm is all programmed. And the video's not over, but. What's that? Oh, you ended it there, all right. So the premise I want to deliver in this video is I want you to understand that people have the ability to use very simple and mundane things as a cool little drone and turn it into a bad thing. The US government has the interest in knocking these drones out, either by reprogramming them, telling them where to go or where not to go, or physically damaging the electronics on board the drone so that it is no longer capable of flying. This will secure the facilities and the personnel within them and within public view. So we're doing that with utilizing a microwave blast. It's a directed EMP. A lot of the stuff that I've talked about today is how to take focused energy and use it. This is no different. This focuses radio frequency material energies into a beam so that you can damage the electronics that are on board that drone. It's a counter electronics function. This is a very new high interest thing because of the electronic warfare that we are going to be entering in the next given years. All right, if you go to the last one. So I heard Eric talk about cyber. Our newest thing, and our coolest thing actually, is called SEIS-GOA. So SEIS-GOA is a cyber technology that you all have passwords in your various PDAs for things. That password secures your device, you think. Most things are utilizing what's called AES-256. That is the cyber algorithm by which it is protected. All of your banking is secured by AES-256. I'm here to tell you that a lot of universities have cracked it, and if universities are cracking it, you know the state actors are as well. We looked at the challenge of that and said, how can we remedy this? How we can remedy this is we come up with a password hopping algorithm, one that changes its password as fast as you can snap your fingers. It's changed its password. By the time you hacked it, it's too late. I've already moved on. This is a basis of what's called SyncGuard radio that is made also here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, by ITT Defense guys that protects our voice communications already in all of the cockpits and Army radio sets and everything else. It changes the frequency at which it's projecting its sound communications. It changes it very continuously. I used an analogy of that and created an algorithm that actually changes the password. That password can be up to 16,000 bit, which is ridiculous compared to 256 AES. And it changes it up to 400 times a second. That's cool. What that will do is that will secure electronics that we have today and in the future, even in the case of being against a quantum computer type of hack. A quantum computer assumes that it can resolve the cyber challenge of breaking somebody's password in one machine cycle. As long as I have the ability to change the password in one machine cycle, a quantum computer even can't hack this. So assuming that the bad guy and the good guy has the same capability of computing strength or capability, SEAS GOA will be the next generation of technology that is protecting electronics as you know them. My partner on this one is a pretty small company you might have heard of. It's called Intel. It's a lot of fun. Again, these are ideas that came out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. You have ideas in your head, I guarantee it. And all you need to do is to gather your ideas, speak with and get involved with companies and organizations that can help you mature those ideas into technology products, and the end result are going to be something extraordinary. I guess my words of wisdom to you are try to learn something every day. That's my number one thing. I want to learn something new every day, no matter what the scenario is. And as a result of learning something new, try to determine what the market interest might be in that. Questions? I will do my best to answer your questions. If you give me a political question, I probably will pass. Oh yeah, if you ask a question, I got a door prize. It's the world's loudest whistle, by the way.
Jacob from Northside. I know that you said that your speakers direct audio waves like light, but is there any other reason why your speakers are so much louder and function so much better than the competitors?
So that's a great question. So one of the challenges you noted in my delivery is that I always try to figure out how to improve the strength of which the acoustics can be generated, and then to take that energy from multiple transducers and to correlate it into a single beam. This laser produces its light, and the light marches along a path that is in perfect phase and sync. That's the reason it has the properties that it has. If you take this laser and you aim it at the moon, literally tens of millions of the photons that leave this will hit the moon because they are marching in perfect synchronous to the moon. If I take a 100-watt light bulb that you would have in your house and hold it up to the moon, not one photon leaves that bulb and hits the moon. The difference is it's the same amount of power. They're both light. One is marching in perfect synchronous, like a perfect choir, singing a perfect tune. That's the behavior of light. And with acoustics, we do the same thing. We get all of the energy from all of the transducers to work together in a perfect synchronous.
Okay, who has a question?
Heard door prize. Now they got all kinds of hands up.
Hi, my name's Emily. I'm from Wayne. So I had a question about how you're talking about one of your inventions was kind of like an MRI, or like it works like that. Have you thought of any ways to make a new version of an MRI, seeing as how helium is kind of running low?
That's a great question. So I actually, one of my friends is Dr. Pierce here at Parkview, and he's also a good friend of Mr. Miro, Dr. Miro, and we've actually introduced to them the premise of focused magnetics as a possibility of making a portable MRI machine. I don't know if you're all Star Trek fans, but I always remember the old doctor had the little tricorder thing and he'd go wave it around somebody. That's all that requires for us to accomplish that is just the ability to focus to a finite small area that magnetics capability so that I could take localized MRI machines as opposed to having to put a physical body inside of a gigantic magnet. So the question's awesome. We'll get there, I promise.
John's
Speak up so I can hear you.
Hi, I'm Xavier from Northside. So a lot of your products are for defense purposes. Are you ever afraid that some of your products might get into the hands of people with more sinister intentions?
That is a great question. So my heart is to create technology, and it's not my job to create policy for it. We create great tools. This laser can be utilized for great things. You can aim this laser at that clock and see that that's what I want you to see at that moment. But I could also shine this in your eyes, and that would be a negative. It's a choice by which you have to make, the user of the technology product, and a policy that you have to administer to yourself or by regulatory functions that are forced upon you. So from an inventor standpoint, it's my job to create the technology product to serve the good of man. not necessarily to make a determination of how it could be used negatively, because you can truly take anything good and make it bad.
Watch the cameras. You
Great
wanna
question.
Step behind them when you work. Thanks, Joe.
Okay, we'll take a question over here.
Hi, I'm Dakota Bolton from East Side, and I was wondering how you came up with the idea to focus sound into like a beam.
So that is a great question too. I was told by a lot of people within my realm that you couldn't. So in about 2004, I was over at Purdue at the main campus, and I demonstrated Hyperspike for the very first time for them. And they said after a 2.5 hour symposium that I gave to the acoustics department over there, they said, this is one of the coolest nights. We actually think we created 7 new terms for acoustics in one evening. I said, that's pretty impressive. And he goes, yeah, we've never even created one before. So the neat thing about acoustics is, let me step back. The neat thing about electromagnetic energies of all flavors is they follow a lot of similar characteristics. They may have different rules that they play by, but you can apply the same kind of mindsets to various things. So whenever I started to look at acoustics, not in context of sound, but in context of light and the phase relationships, it allowed me to accomplish, to jump past the scenario of limitations that possibly books from old would have limited me. I wouldn't even have thought of that if I was told that it was no reason to chase that. So the difference is Leo Burneck's book of acoustics from 1956, I didn't read it until like last year. So the application for which Hyperspike was created, I possibly would have, if I would have assumed that book of acoustics to be the law of the land and the Bible of acoustics, so to speak, I probably wouldn't even have chased a Hyperspike thing, but I did. And it didn't happen overnight. It took me 3.5 years to actually resolve it. The end result is we created Hyperspike products, and now they're being effective and being utilized around the world to resolve challenges. If you want to communicate to somebody 5.5 miles away with sound over water, guess what? I do that. And the US Navy likes to be able to do that. For instance, if you want to talk to a ship nearby you without actually queuing up the radio, which tells anybody within 100 miles of you that you're talking on the radio, then you want to use sound to do that from ship to ship. And they use my systems to accomplish that. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Josh from Wayne. I was wondering, instead of using your products for like defensive mechanisms, that you can use them more for like offensive, you know?
So almost the same question that we had before. Whenever you come up with a technology product, you have to think of in terms of how would that product be what are the applications that you would see it utilized within the market. As an inventor, you can't always think of all of those. And so what happens consistently in my world is I come up with an idea for a neat tool, and we deliver a presentation to the government. Colonel Augustine, that's walking around handing out the door prizes, he's my guy for that, by the way. He's extraordinary. He makes his way into offices, talks to a lot of important people within the government. He says, I have a tool that does this. How would you use it? And the neat thing about the resolve of that is it wasn't David's idea, but David has the connections and the potential to take those to places that allow people of policy and procedure and regulatory function to actually study the use of those devices, that tool, and see how they might apply it for applications. Sometimes those are defensive, sometimes those are offensive. As an inventor, I'm not gonna get upset if the government decides to use my tools to do something that it perceives as a good thing, whatever that is. I'm red, white, and blue, 100% American, just like you.
Hey, who has a question over here?
My name is Jonathan from East Side. I was just wondering how much harmful radiation is produced from your RF products.
That's a great question. So RF Spike has what's called an A field and a B field. An A field is the energy that you intended to create into the main beam, the main targeted beam that you're going to assail that drone in this case would be with. It also creates a B field, which is all the side lobe action that goes out from the device that is to some degree uncontrollable. So we have to create policy and procedure in that scenario for a safety perimeter around these devices. The duration of the time period of that RF spike system in operation, the duration of it is about 4 microseconds. It's a unbelievably short pulse. Very, 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 very fast. Millions of a second kind of thing. So your body doesn't even see it. Your body, if you were in that pulse for a few seconds, it is less than you sitting on the beach in Siesta Key, which is where I love to go, by the way. But you sitting on the beach and being in the sun for 8 hours, that's more. So it's not just the type of energy or the energy level, but it's also the duration of the exposure. Same with loudness. If you blow those whistles really loud, you're going to make your ears ring. That's why I put hearing protection inside of each of those packages. Please use it. And also don't disrupt the classes. That would be really bad for me. So as a quick answer, I want you to understand that the intent is to create the tool, and it is to control the good behavior and action of the beam and diminish the B effect of the field, and to create policy around it so that we don't have anybody that is actually in the places where they might be harmed. The energies that I'm utilizing here are no different than what are being utilized by the radar system that are sitting out here at Fort Wayne International Airport. You've seen the red antenna that spins? That's the same kind of power that I'm talking about here, but it's continuous. Well, what they do is they created policy and procedure. They elevated it, and they put that the little screen that is on the bottom side of it. Next time you're going to go out there and you're going to see this, there's a grid that is underneath of it, and it's called the ground plane. And the ground plane eliminates that antenna from irradiating you even standing next to it. And so you create policy and procedure to protect people and electronics. If you walked up to my RF spike and you had your PDA and I fired it at a drone that way, unless we would create that kind of policy and procedure and regulation function, your PDA possibly could get damaged, even though it's not in the main beam, because the energy level is so high. My pulse energies are on the order of about 5 million watts. That is a lot more than the 1,200 watts that you used to heat your coffee this morning. Thank you for the question.
Oh my goodness, there's all these hands everywhere. Choose,
So my question is, obviously a lot of people have said that we seem to increasingly be in sort of almost like a new Cold War with, Russia and China, two countries that have traditionally been, an adversarial relationship with the interests of the United States. So where do you see our sort of technological, investment and our ability to compete on that global stage in relation to, say, Russia or China?
That is a great question. So I get to travel abroad a lot. I've been almost to every continent. I've been to a lot of countries. I do a lot of business with other countries, not just the United States. Most all of them are our allies, of course. What I see when I get out there is there are a lot of great people in every culture. There are a lot of great universities in every culture, and they're all teaching the same kind of sciences and the same kind of abilities. I have friends in China. I build some of my technology products in some of those venues. I have people in India. There are extraordinary folks all around the world. And what's neat, as an inventor, I know every time that I come up with a new idea, there's probably 10 people on the earth that are thinking that at the same time, because there's a lot of people on the earth. So it's not just who's thinking of the idea, but who can mature it to get it to a product or productize it as quickly as possible and get it to the market. Not always is the guy that thinks of the idea first the winner, because I've got a lot of friends that I have that had great ideas back in many years and decades ago, and they didn't chase it. They didn't pursue it. And I found out about it later. I had one gentleman from Warsaw, an older gentleman, and he came up with this idea for an extraordinary reciprocating motor design. And about 4 years ago on his deathbed, he said, "Would you come over? I have something to share with you." So I walked in and talked with him for about 2 hours. And he had his son pull out this prototype that he had created in 1952. And that engine design was extraordinary. I'm a very mechanical-minded type of individual. I looked at it, I saw the benefits of this immediately. He said, "Is there any way we can take this to Detroit?" He said, "I had this idea back in the 50s, and it was a good idea then, and I think it's still a good idea." I said, I really don't want to be the bearer of bad news in this scenario. Had you brought this to Detroit in 1956 or 58, your engine would be powering most of the cars today. But he didn't, and he just sat on it. And the end result of that is his idea sat in his closet for all those years, and he didn't see that product become, or that concept and idea become a product. And the end result is that individual wasn't able to take his idea and better mankind. It just sat there stagnant all those years. And today it's too late. Reciprocating motors are we're at the end of that era. In the future, it's going to be electric motors. It will be, because they're more efficient, they're quiet, they're clean, they don't create any carbon. It's a gorgeous thing.
How do you decide who to give your product to?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
How do you decide who to give your product to?
That's a great question. So again, when you're an inventor or a scientist, you come up with the idea and you hope to find the guys that can take it to the product market. I don't manufacture anything personally, not one thing. The hyper whistle you see in front of you, I have that manufactured under our branding names, but I don't physically manufacture them. What I try to do is I try to find a partner that I can jointly work with. The Tippmann industry guys here in New Haven, they are the perfect fit for this. This is a pneumatic device. They are world renowned for being pneumatic paintball guys. So I went in and I talked with Denny Tippmann, and I said, Denny, I got something really cool to show you. And I walked in with this one. He looked at it, and we went out back. He goes, I want to shoot it. So he took it out back, and he shot one of his target dummies with it. And he goes, this is it. This is the one. And the result of that is I knew that he would be a proponent or a possible proponent of the manufacture of that product and take it to the market. And so I had to be willing to create a prototype, which I did. And then I had to be willing to go in and do a debut of that product to him, knowing that he could be my competitor. If you show your competitors all your good ideas, that's a bad choice. You bind yourself with NDAs so that everybody's safe. Your technology is safe. They're not going to steal it. And the end result is you're going to have the ability to take this product to a potential competitor who could be your key component to selling of this product. So always be on the lookout. If you have an idea, you have a good idea, you got to think in terms of how do I find the right guy that's going to help me manufacture this, because you probably don't want to stand up manufacturing yourself.
Hi, I'm Evan from Northrop, and I was just wondering, as an inventor yourself, have you ever come across something that you've not been able to accomplish or invent if you've just run into a problem or something that you just couldn't end up getting past?
So that is a perfect question for an inventor, actually. One of my biggest challenges is I work on something for a very long time, think about it and work on it and work on it and work on it, and I'm never able to find the resolve. And then shortly thereafter, all of a sudden one of your competitors shows up and they have the same thing and they've figured it out. So it's those moments where, as an inventor, you have to just say, you know, that one wasn't for me, and it's okay. I currently have 51 patents that have issued. That's a statement from the U.S. government saying that I have 51 ideas that were actually really, really cool and novel, and they want to protect me on it. I've had at least half that amount of ideas that I didn't chase. And the reason I didn't chase them is I couldn't get to the fruition. I couldn't get to the resolve. And that might be just a temporal function, because we have to have materials catch up. As soon as you have the materials and technology to resolve it, then I can go back and dig those out of the file cabinet, so to speak, and reapply the new materials, and all of a sudden, hey, look, I just solved it. Sometimes it's that easy.
Hi, I'm Jamila from Wayne. You talked about how you make objects that portray sound in a different way. Have you ever thought about how we can perceive that sound and how there's different ways that we can do that?
So that is a great question. One of my products is called parametric acoustics. And so parametric acoustics, I didn't bring that toy. It's one of my coolest parlor tricks. I'll describe it so that you can actually understand it. So sound is a vibration carried about by the air. And that sound has a limited amount of physics that it's governed by. And you can't fix that. It's the physics that is the ruling mechanism for the device. So in parametric acoustics, I did a couple things. First of all, I said there's other ways to generate sound, not just speakers and transducers. One of the products is I use ultrasound and I modulate onto the ultrasound a waveform of the audio that I want to broadcast. The advantage of ultrasound is the beam width of that ultrasound, because its frequency is very, very short, is very, very narrow. So I have an acoustics device that produces a beam of acoustics that is the same diameter as that laser beam. And I could pick any one of your ears. I could pick one person and one ear and put a message into it. And I do that by virtue of utilizing a ultrasound that has a modulation on it of the audio that I want. And when that ultrasound carries that modulation to your ear, the ultrasound hits your ear and it breaks. That beam breaks. And what's left over, because of the scenario of all energies that are created have to be, they can't be destroyed. The end result is that ultrasound carries that modulation to your ear broke with the modulation, and the modulation had to recompose itself as audio. And so it's a whisper in your ear. I did a really cool, funny thing over at the mall when we first devised that. I went into the mall and I had this device, and I was whispering in people's ears just to get their reaction. I wanted to see what they felt like. So I was sitting outside the mall entrance and had my window down. I was about, I don't know, maybe 100 feet away, and this lady walked out. And the very first thing I said is I aimed it at her one of her ears, and I said, "You left your purse." That's all I said. "You left your purse." She immediately did. You know, I almost want to apologize to her. It was a lot of fun, though. But the idea, the perception of being able to utilize technology to do things that you might perceive as magic is the neat side of invention. Because technology today, 100 years ago, my grandparents would think this is magic. And yet you carry it and use it today. This is not magic. It's just technology.
I'm Brianna from Norwell. And you have the audio, I don't remember what it's called, but since you do a lot of cool things with audio, I was wondering, are you thinking about creating a product for the production of music in any way?
So I'm a musician. The reason I kind of look like Tony Stark is because whenever I'm in the band this weekend, I'm going to be Tony Stark. We do an Iron Man thing. It's kind of cool. And so I love music. And one of my former companies is CSD. It's a company here in Fort Wayne, still in business. They're doing amazing things. If you went down to Three Rivers Festival, they did all the sound for the festival down there. So all the bands and stuff were playing on the systems from that company. That was one of my former companies. So I was deeply involved with sound reinforcement for venues such as this, or churches, or bands, or nightclubs, things of that nature. We've done all kinds of stuff in the past. The neat thing about being innovative is I can apply some of the rules that I've come about for this kind of product. I can apply them right into sound reinforcement for music and sound industry. So the next generation of curved linear speakers that you see when you go out and watch somebody play in a band at the Coliseum, for instance, or wherever, that technology may actually be a basis. This may be the core of it. One of my partners is BNC Speakers over in Italy, and I have another one that's called Celestion Speakers in the UK. And if you're a guitar guy, you know what Celestion Speakers are because they own the world. They make the best guitar speakers. I'm a guitar player, so I love their stuff. But the key is some of the technology that I come up with for these applications, we literally revolve them into areas that I had no idea we were going to go there. But the advantages of my transducer technology are just as appropriate for sound and music and theater as they are for voice communications and everything else. When you make a high-quality product that does a novel thing, what you get as a result is you get an application that covers a very big, wide gamut.
Kurt, I think we're done.
All right.
I hate to cut you off because I think they have a lot more questions.
Good stuff.
All right.